Good evening, and welcome to the TNT Show, The Nation Talks. I'm John Drummond, and I'm your host for the next 60 exciting minutes, always 60 exciting minutes on the TNT Show. You know, it's been another great day for British democracy. We hear today that the lifeboat charity RNLI has had to defend itself against physical as well as social abuse after Nigel Farage described it as a taxi service for migrants, close quotes. Joyful, isn't it? Nigel is some guy, and to think of the influence he had over the Brexit decision is really pretty desperate to think about. Thanks for joining us this evening. Tonight we'll be talking to Fiona Campbell. Now, Fiona is a much-travelled independence activist. I'll say that advisedly, because she's probably marched as much as anyone, perhaps, to support the independence cause. And we'll be talking to her about what's happening in Scotland, how she feels about it, what's happening with her, how she's affected by the things that happen day to day to many Scots, and so much more besides. And she's taking your questions live, as we always do on the TNT Show. And if you're looking for a way to submit your questions, go to the What's On Guide, that's www.whatsonguide.scot, and you'll be able to leave your questions or comments there. So the nation talks to Fiona Campbell, and this is very much your show. So we're looking forward to your questions and comments as we go along. How are you, Fiona? The pandemic has affected most of us. How are you coping?
Hi, John. I'm not too bad, considering after the last 18 months that we've had. You know, it's good to see light at the end of the tunnel and see the life returning as much as normal as possible at the moment, but it's been a long slog, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has been for many, many folks. How has it affected your family?
Well, to be honest, when the first lockdown happened, it was a big shock because, as a lot of people maybe know, I'm a carer for my son who's got autism, so life just changed dramatically overnight for him. You know, he couldn't go to his usual places or do his favourite activities or things. It went from having quite a full active life to absolutely nothing. So it's been a learning curve for all of us, really.
Yeah. Sounds very demanding. What? Tell us a bit about yourself, Fiona, before we get into questions. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? What was your family life like?
I was born in Aberdeen. I lived there for the first 3 years of my life, and then my mum and dad moved to Dollar, where I went to primary school there, and then I went to Dollar Academy for a couple of years. Because my mum and dad were working there. My mum was a nurse in the NHS, and my dad was an industrial chemist. Mm-hmm. So after that, we spent a year in Dunblane, and before returning home to Oban, where my mum was from.
Okay.
Originally.
So we've got some strange sound problems. I'll maybe tweak my gain down a bit, see if that makes any difference. You've got two sisters, is that right?
I've got two sisters, yes. One lives in New Zealand now, Morven, and my other sister, Lorna, lives in Kilbarchan, just outside Glasgow.
So in many respects, your dad was greatly outnumbered.
He certainly was, and he knew it. Yeah.
And so you moved to your mother's hometown in Oban.
That's right, yeah.
How was that for you? I mean, was it a big change from Dunblane and Dollar?
Yes and no. I mean, I was only 10 when we moved to Oban, so yeah. I mean, I just sort of fitted in. I loved it in Oban. You know, the gateway to the Isles. I've got family over in Tiree, you know, so we used to be able to go over there and things.
But it's like different places. You know, you've got, on the one hand, you've got Dollar and Dunblane, which are sort of as it were, internal, and all of a sudden you're at Oban, where you're on the coast. You've got a tourist industry. Not to say there's not some tourism in Dunblane and Dollar, but it's a very different tourism, perhaps.
I was quite used to being in Oban, though, because I spent quite a lot of my holidays there as a child, because my granny still lived there, so we used to go and visit her regularly, so Oban was quite familiar to me. But yeah, it's definitely a different way of life, living in a seaside town, but it's a fantastic place. I love it there. Absolutely love it.
So how did you get involved in the independence movement? What sort of precipitated that?
Well, I wasn't really actively involved before the first referendum, but then in the build-up to it, you couldn't help but feel the atmosphere and excitement and things, the build-up to it. So, so I was obviously on a high, and the night of the referendum, I stayed up to watch the results coming in, and I was just absolutely devastated. I was felt grief-struck for a couple of days, and then I was really, really angry after that, the way that things had gone. So I decided, rather than just sitting not doing anything about it, I went to the Hope Over Fear rally in Glasgow in September after it, and I started meeting people there and made friends, and it was just fantastic to feel the energy of being part of a big crowd and an uplifting atmosphere after what had happened. So, and through meeting people from there, a lot of them are still friends now. I was asked in 2018 to be the head steward for the first independence march in Inverness.
Yeah.
And things just stemmed from there.
It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We still got an echo on this. I'm not quite sure what's happening. When you were, so you weren't active in the independence movement, but were you a sort of independent supporter prior to 2014?
I was definitely an independent supporter, but I wasn't actively involved in the sort of organisation side of things. So, I mean, that really didn't take off until it was Neil Davidson who asked me if I would become involved in helping to organise the Inverness March. And that was my first real taste of organisation and actually getting out there and talking to people on the streets, canvassing and things. And I loved it. So I haven't looked back.
Some people find that very challenging to be. Sorry, folks, we're having real trouble with the sound tonight. I'm not quite sure what the problem is, but we'll persist. We'll make changes as we go along and see. Hopefully, we can figure out what it sounds like. We've got some feedback here, and what it's doing is it's overlaying on the questions that I put to Fiona. Maybe you're not detecting it at your end, but it's fairly loud in the studio here. But let's press on, because we've got so much to cover.
Mm-hmm.
We'll try and fix the sound as we go along. So you became really active in 2014. What about your family? Were they interested in Scottish politics? Were they interested in Yes?
Not. I mean, up until now, my youngest daughter Naomi, she's not really active within it, but my eldest daughter Isla, she loves the social side of it, going to all the indie events. She's got a loud voice, so she knows how to chant and shout and things like that, So she's been involved in the stewarding side of things, and obviously with Gregor being autistic and things, it's a bit of a challenge with him. But he has been along to some of the marches, which he seems to enjoy.
Good. That's good news. How would you describe the area where you live? Do you find there's lots of Yes activists, or are you one of a very few? Or how is it working out for you?
I would say that we're very active in the Highlands and Islands. Just there's always seems to be events going on and things, and when it comes like in the run up to elections, there's always people out canvassing. and things. We used to, before the pandemic, we used to regularly do street stalls in Inverness and things to get feedback and things, and to talk to people with different opinions to see what we can do, what we've got in common with other people, find out what their reasons are for not agreeing with us and things. And it's good to get out and talk to people, I think.
Talking about the people who don't agree with you,
Mm-hmm.
what's the commonest reaction you get from people who don't agree with you? What do they say to you? What's their objection to independence?
They think that Scotland can't afford to go on her own. I mean, that's something that I completely disagree with, because with Scotland's resources and our energy sector, our food and drink sector, tourism and things, I think if all the resources that were raised in Scotland stayed in Scotland, then we'd be able to provide people with a much better way of life as well.
Don't you find it interesting? I mean, the SNP has been in power for 12 years,
mm-hmm.
and people still have these questions. These are the questions way back in 2014 and long before that. How come people still have these concerns and reservations?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of the time, I'm seeing a trend that it's older people that are still reading like your mainstream newspapers and things like that. And in a way, I can understand why they feel like that, because that's the way that they've been brought up, and they're maybe not as active on social media, and they're not seeing the statistics and things that we see. But it's all about, that's what makes the difference, actually getting out and talking to people on the street and saying, well, here's a leaflet, that's been done that actually shows that we probably could afford to do it, So.
Yeah. Okay, we've got some questions coming in. Stephen Kelly is asking, when do you see a referendum happening?
I would like to see a referendum happening within the next 5 years, but unfortunately, with the way that things are going at the moment, I think we could be waiting up to another 10 years, which I fear might be too late. Unfortunately, I think that we need to be getting out there and at least starting to campaign for it now. More needs to be done to be keeping it at the forefront of people's minds.
Yeah, what do you think should be done?
Well, I mean, there's a. I understand that there is, we've been in the middle of a pandemic, and they said that all campaigning and things needs to be stopped. But I think getting back out onto the streets and things, holding street stalls and social media campaigns, things like that, to keep the discussion going, in the absence of actually being able to get out and talk to people. So
that fits
we have to be more creative, I think, about what we're doing.
Yeah. Stephen Kelly is also asking, when would you see the full independence marches happening this year in their tens of thousands? Do you think that's going to happen this year?
Well, I know that the All Under One Banner Stirling and Edinburgh marches are still scheduled to go ahead. So, I mean, we are in level 0 now, so I would be hopeful for them happening, But in the absence of that, I would definitely say from early next year that we need to get them started again, to boost people's morale more than anything else as well.
Yeah.
There is an All Under One Banner rally on Saturday in Dundee that I know of, but it's a static event. It's not actually one of the marches.
Right. Yeah, it's difficult to see how you can have a march in these circumstances.
I know, that's just.
So what form of
the marches are good for bringing people together and socialising, boosting morale.
Yeah, I can see that. You've just mentioned the Independence Live will be live streaming it, by the way.
All right.
So that's for all the folks who can't make it to Dundee. Go to Indy Live. You'll see the static event being filmed by Indy Live. We're live streaming it then. Here's a question from John Paul Warrilow. And John is asking, what do you make of Tommy Shepherd's Facebook post today indicating that the courts have ruled that Westminster must publish previous polls that they tried to hide? Do you think this will be a game changer in some way?
Well, I haven't seen Tommy's post, but I think transparency is always a good thing. So if Tommy Shepherd's got fallen for it and he is an independence MP, isn't he? So yeah, I would imagine, without actually seeing the post, that it would be a good thing.
Well, I think what he's referring to is the attempt by Michael Gove to keep the polls that they conducted on independence some months ago secret.
Well, I would be asking why they would want to keep them a secret, because have they got something to hide? And so it probably would be a good thing for them to be transparent, if there is such a thing. Yeah. A transparent Tory.
Yeah. Yeah, it does rather suggest that there's somebody somewhere has something to hide. Otherwise, why not just release them? And if they're favourable to the union and you've organised that, why don't you just come right out and say that? It does rather suggest that there is something there that they're trying not to talk about. Ian Leckenby, you probably know Ian.
I do know Ian, yes.
You do know Ian. He's asking how the walk from Skye to Culloden training is coming along.
Yes, I'm getting there. Not been as good as what I was in the past, Ian, but yeah, I've got a couple of weeks, I think, to up my game and get going. Are you coming to join us?
There you are, Ian. Are you joining Fiona and the rest of the folks? You can get your answer to us before the end of the program if you want. You probably, maybe you don't know this, but Ian was on the show several weeks ago talking about what he was doing. Tell us, for those who have not been on a march of any kind, tell us what a typical day is like when you're walking. First of all, tell us about you were one of the core walkers on the 500-mile walk for independence. Is that right?
It was last year, yes.
Last year. So tell us a typical day for Fiona Campbell on the walk.
On the 500 walk.
Sure.
Well, I mean, obviously you get up in the morning and things, get yourself organised to get out there. I mean, it was a magical experience for me to actually. I mean, when you can say that you've travelled Scotland, but going in a car, you don't see the scenery and meet the people that we met along the road, or like get the support from people driving past and cars when they see the saltire and things. It was a real life-changing experience for me. It completely changed me and took me to places that I'd never been before, and really made me appreciate how special Scotland is, and made me even more determined to fight for our independence as well.
So a typical day would be what you would get up at 8 and start at 9, or get out at 7 and start at 8?
We were usually like 10, 11 o'clock. It would depend on how many miles you were doing that day. But yeah, I mean, it was usually about 10, 11 o'clock we would get out and get going. And it was, when we were going along, Pedro kept wanting to stop and to take photos of everything, because he couldn't believe that the scenery and things, and you would stop and you would talk to people as well, and it was just an absolutely incredible experience.
Help me to understand it. You start at 10, 11 o'clock and you start walking.
Mm-hmm.
How many are you?
Well, a lot of the time there was our support driver. It would be Joe Grant, usually our support driver, and we would walk for like maybe 4 or 5 miles along the road, and then you would stop and have a drink and have a break and that, and then keep going. I mean, we were averaging about 10 to 12 miles a day. So yeah, and we actually, the more we did it, because we did it over 6 weeks the last time, the more we did it, the fitter we got, you know, so we were able to get through the distances quite quickly, and you feel more motivated to go along and keep doing it, even though you've got blisters and things like that.
So did you have some place to stay overnight? I mean, how did you get fed? I mean, how did all about the logistics? How did that work?
Well, we actually, I've got a caravan which has now been renamed Ivan. So we used to, we had a driver that would come, Donald from Oban, that would come and like move the caravan about once a week to different sites, and then we would stayed in the caravan and like cooked and things for ourselves. And things, yeah.
So you got logistical support, but you must have been out of pocket on all of this stuff.
Joe started a crowdfunder for us as well to help cover the expenses of the caravan and of the fuel and the site fees and things like that, you know. So that was very, very much appreciated as well. Mm-hmm.
So if you were doing 10 miles a day and 500 miles, you know, that's a whole heap of commitment.
Yeah, it was. I mean, when I was only meant to be doing it for the first couple of days when it started, but then I went home for 4 days and I couldn't settle, so I went back and ended up staying for weeks. But yeah, I think I did about 380 miles, but Pedro did most of it, so we've still got 100. It's 124 miles the last leg that we're doing.
Yeah. Why? That's extraordinary. I mean, it's just extraordinary. And did you get much publicity as you went along?
No, well, not so much, but it was more on Facebook and on Twitter and things, you know. But yeah, I mean, people would see us when we were walking along, you know, with our flags and things. So yeah, it was quite good. It was good. It was life-changing.
And did people come and join you?
Occasionally, we had people that could come and join us for a couple of days or things, or just come for the day. Yeah, we had Jane with Sheldon came and joined us a couple of times. So he's always a big hit, isn't he? He's more popular than any of us, I think. Sheldon is, isn't he?
So you've got another one planned.
The one that we've got is to finish off the one from last year, because we had to finish it early when the tiered restrictions came in, because we couldn't be moving about to different areas with the tiered restrictions. So, but we always said that we would have to go back and finish it. So that's what the last leg is for, on the 18th of August.
And when are you scheduled to finish?
We finish it on the 28th of August at Culloden Battlefield.
At Culloden? My word. And why did you choose Culloden?
Because it's such a historic place, and to pay tribute to our ancestors who've fallen there, and show that we're carrying on in the name of independence.
Donald McFarlane is asking if the Yes Bikers will be invited to the Skye Culloden March.
Everybody is invited. Yes, please. The more, the merrier.
There you are, Donald. That's your question. That's your answer.
That's Donald, that used to be our driver for towing the caravan. Hi, Donald.
It's a small world.
I mean, if anybody wants to come and join us over the 10 days for the last leg of the walk as well, they're more than welcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, there you are, folks. That's an open invitation. If you're going to be up in either any part of the route between Skye and Culloden, you're welcome to join in. and maybe even make a contribution to the march itself, if you've got the funds. Hashbury Stumble, lovely name, is asking, how do we reach the persuadables? I guess maybe what's meant by that term is the soft no, people who are a little bit sort of yes agnostic.
I think, I mean, what for myself, I don't like getting involved in like debates online, because things can get taken the wrong way. So for me, I prefer speaking to people, when we're out on street stalls. Be respectful, listen to their views, but put your views across as well, and but not in an aggressive manner, because if we start arguing, then you just don't get anywhere. But also, I think you have to accept that there's going to be some people that there's absolutely no way that you would ever change your minds, and choose your battles as well, and make sure you have your facts right as well, because if you get it wrong, then it's not a good thing, is it?
It's not a good thing. But I generally take the view you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's a whole bunch of folks out there who are never going to be convinced that this is a good idea. We talked last week to Hugo Rifkin, the Times columnist, and he is a unionist. But my sense of it is that there's and maybe this is helpful, is that I'm not sure unionists are one united group despite the name. I think there's a spectrum of people who are opposed to independence, and I think soft no is a good way to describe it. The people on one side of the spectrum, all of whom have a hankering for changing the system, but not as much as independence supporters want it to change. They're looking for some sort of home rule or federalism. The words tend to be interchangeable, even though a constitutional purist would say these are quite different things in many respects. But all of these things would require a complete change of view at Westminster. And when I put it to them, how likely is it that that's going to happen? They're generally united in saying, no, it's not going to happen, really. So it sort of rather rules out the idea of a gradual change. In fact, what we're seeing just now is the very opposite. We're seeing what's known as muscular unionism, which is that hard-edged, what you've got, we're going to take away. Which is, by the way, their perfect right in legal terms, if not in moral terms, because power devolved is power retained. So, if you've retained the power, you have the liberty to remove it, take it away, whatever you want to do with it at some stage. So what would you like to see happening that isn't happening just now? What do you think is missing?
I mean, obviously, I would like to see the marches starting back again, and the social side of things. It feels like there's nothing's really been happening for the last while, but now we're seeing most restrictions are being lifted. So now I think it's time to get back out there and start campaigning. It would be good if we could start up again where we left off. I mean, the marches are good for lifting morale and things, but I think things like street stalls and actually collecting data and things to see where we're at now give us a proper view of, you mentioned polls and things before, so I think we need to see where we're at with that. And obviously I would love to see a date announced for the next referendum.
How likely is it, do you think, that Westminster is going to agree to a referendum?
I don't think that's likely at all. I think we're going to have to find alternative ways.
Like what?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's up to the experts, but I can't see it. If Westminster know that the polls are in our favour, and things. I think Boris will never, and the Tories will never agree to a Section 30, so something else is going to have to be done.
Well, what would you see as being done?
I really don't know. I mean, I know that Martin Keating's raised a case before, which he lost, unfortunately, but I think Joanna Cherry could be key in finding a way forward for us, because if we go asking Westminster for a Section 30, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I suspect a lot of people feel that way. Stephen Kelly is asking, do you see our Parliament and powers finished, Fiona, by the end of this year?
I wouldn't say by the end of this year, but I would definitely say that we're in danger of losing a lot of our powers and Parliament if the SNP doesn't step up and do something about it soon.
But you have no specific views on what you would recommend that they do.
It's not up to me. I'm not. I wasn't vote. You know, I'm not an MP or things. It's up to them. We've been talking about a Section 30 for far too long and keep being told no. So they need to find an alternative to what to do. And right at this moment in time, I'm not sure what that is.
Debbie Oliver is offering a suggestion. She's saying, with Westminster already stripping Holyrood of its powers and competencies, rather, should the SNP start immediately to lay foundations and build frameworks that will be required for an independent Scotland?
I would say so, yes. But whether they'll do it or not is another question.
Yeah. Margaret McGovern is saying, I definitely support the Walkers. It's our country, Scotland.
Margaret was very supportive to us during the original walk. She used to come up with hampers of food and things to make sure that we were well fed.
Well, she's going to do the same again.
Thank you, Margaret.
Yeah. On behalf of the nation, Margaret, thank you. Now, you said to me earlier that you're a full-time carer for Gregor. Mm-hmm. And that's one of, I think you said it, one of the reasons that you're so committed to independence is for his future. You care to expand on that?
His son, others like him, I mean, because it's unfortunate that disabled people aren't well looked after and well cared for under a Westminster government. I mean, when you look at the hoops that we have to jump through to even get the proper disability benefits for them, it's just not on. A lot of people are depressed, exhausted from caring, don't have the mental capacity to be able to handle these things themselves. So I like to be a voice to speak up for these people, and I think an independent Scotland would provide a better future for people like Gregor.
So what experiences have you had trying to get support for Gregor?
Well, basically, I've had to fight all Gregor's life to get anything for him, but two of the worst ones were when Gregor used to get disability living allowance, but then when he became 16, I was told that he had to go into personal independence payment, and part of that was the face-to-face interview that personal independence payment applicants have to go through. So Gregor is severely autistic. He's a very big lad. He's 6'6", and even when his doctor said, that it would be traumatic for him to go to a strange place and with strange people and things, to show that he wasn't capable of going to work or things like that, and they still made me take him, and it was awful. Took him into this office, and he had a huge meltdown and just wrecked their office, really. But it was them that had insisted that I put him through the trauma of that. I mean, that's not right. Things like that shouldn't be happening. Disabled people have enough to cope with as it is without any extra stress being put onto them or for their carers. And also the universal credit is just absolutely, it's inhumane. I think the amount of money that they give people to live on, again, when I had to apply for that for Gregor, I was told that I was going to have to send in monthly sick notes for him to prove that he wasn't fit for work, which is putting more pressure onto the doctors and things. I mean, anybody that knows my son would just, when you meet him, you know that he's not fit for work. So it's things like that. But people are exhausted as well. Their carers, the ones that are having to handle things like that. So the whole system needs to be reformed and show a bit more compassion and empathy and understanding towards these people. Listen to their doctors instead of to people who are on the other end of a phone and who are on commission, to get people off benefits.
Do you find it perhaps particularly galling that you and Greg have to jump through all these hoops, but contracts are dispensed on almost a daily, if not a weekly basis, to people who have no experience to make masks, and the masks come out to be no good?
And I mean, for us to have to jump through hoops to do these things for a fraction of money that's not even enough to live on, the amount of money that is getting wasted as well, handing contracts to people who, I don't know what sort of process that they go through to receive these contracts and things. If you're going to do something like that, do it properly and make sure that it's experts that know what they're doing, that you're handing the contracts and things to. Mm-hmm.
So if you had a magic wand, right,
mm-hmm.
and you were creating an independent Scotland, what changes would you like to see put in place to address your needs and those of Gregor and others?
I would say, when somebody doesn't have the mental capacity to deal with these things themselves, listen to their carers, listen to their doctors who know the people best, treat people with dignity and compassion and fairness instead of it always being about the finances and saving as much money as possible. Look at the bigger picture, and increase the quality of these sick people's lives.
Would a universal basic income help?
Yes, I think it would, and it would also provide carers with a sense of self-worth as well, and say, actually, the job that you're doing a fantastic job, and we recognise you, and say, just show some appreciation to these people, these unsung heroes.
Do you feel recognised?
No. Well, actually, I do feel more recognised recently in Scotland, because we get the carer supplement now. So that's a step in the right direction. But I mean, more still needs to be done. I would say it's the same as the NHS stuff during the pandemic and things as well, wasn't it? Yeah, can go outside and clap your hands and things, but yeah, that's not going to put food on the table and pay the bills and things like that, is it?
No, it's hard to see how clapping supports anyone financially. It might make some people feel good, maybe, I don't know. I think if they got a clap and they also got an increase, I think that would probably be more useful. Because it's good to know when you're appreciated. It really is. So tell us a little bit, just a change of pace now. Tell us a little bit about the big flag, Callie. What's that about?
Callie is Callie has just got the feel-good factor. about her. She's not non-party affiliated. She's just a giant slow tire. She's the biggest one in Scotland, we believe. She's 72 feet long by 18 feet wide. And she's been touring the country to various places just to celebrate how brilliant Scotland is. So myself and Judith and Gus Files and Andrew Rushton managed to get her hoisted onto McKeague's Tower in Oban a few months ago, so that caused a bit of a stir. You could see her from everywhere, and since then, yeah, she's booked out now until every weekend, right up until the end of September, I think it is.
So who has booked her? I mean, where is she going? Where is the flight going?
Groups from all over the country have been booking her. She was in Aberdeen last weekend. She's away to Skye this weekend. She's making an appearance on the last leg of the walk as well. I mean, there is a Facebook page called Callie on Tour, and her Twitter handle is hashtag Callie on Tour. So if you look at them, you'll see where she's going.
And that's Callie. That's Callie spelled C-A-L.
C-A-L-E-Y. After the Caledonian Stadium in Inverness. She was made by Smiler McDonald from Stornoway as well. Smiler's very talented at making big flags.
How do you make a flag that size?
I don't know. I really don't know, because when you see her, it's incredible. We had her at Ruthven Barracks a few weeks ago as well, and like all the trucks and buses and folks stopping in the lay-by on the A9 to take pictures and tooting their horns and waving and everything. She just lifts the mood. It's absolutely fantastic. She was at the Kirkcaldy Beach display a few weeks back as well.
So here you are, you're a full-time carer. You're also a formidable marcher. I said you were much travelled, and it's true, you are much travelled. And you plan to do more marches. Mm-hmm. How do you fit it all in, Fiona?
Well, I'm lucky because unfortunately my husband and I separated last year, but we share custody of Gregor, so I do have free time in that respect, and I clock up a lot of miles on my car. Honestly, chuck a tent in the boot, off you go. So, but it's brilliant. It really lifts my mood, and to get together. I mean, the friends that I've made are they're like family now. Things, very close relationships within the indie movement.
And do you have a Facebook page and Twitter handle that helps to keep this group together that you've created effectively by marching?
Well, I mean, I've got a personal Facebook page, but I mean, we just keep in touch. I'm not sure how it happens, but just you hear about events going on and you turn up at things and meet everyone. I'm just back from a weekend camping in Ardrossan with a load of indie activists, things like that. We haven't had that over the last year, but things are starting to happen now.
That's good. What was the mood amongst the folks you met in Ardrossan?
Oh, we always have a brilliant time in Ardrossan. I mean, we don't generally talk about politics or things like that. It's just a place to get together, to chill out, sing songs, and bring your kids along, things like that. Yeah, beautiful sunsets. Yeah, that's what Ardrossan's where you go and get together when you just want to chill out and relax. Right.
You don't get the ferry to Arran then, you just...
Well, you can do if you want, but you just very much go with the flow, just decide what you want to do when you're waking up each day. Mm-hmm.
Cool. So here you are, you're marching, you're a full-time carer, you're enthusing other people, you're effectively pulling out all the stops. Do you feel supported by the political parties? Do you feel that they understand what you're doing? Do they Do they acknowledge you? Do they recognize you for all of this effort? What is your sense of that?
On the whole, I mean, there is some support for them. I mean, when it comes to the marches and things, where you could always get speakers and things for the rallies and things afterwards. So yeah, it's a challenge sometimes getting different people and like get mixing it up so that people don't get bored listening to the same stuff and things. But yeah, on the whole, it's good.
What about the First Minister? Has she turned up for any of your marches?
Not so far. She hadn't, but there hasn't been any happening for a long time, has there? So there's still time for her to change her mind for once in the future.
Well, through the medium of the TNT show, do you want to invite her to come along on the 18th of August, or when you finish up on the 28th?
Well, I would have to speak to my other team members about that. So, but yeah, I mean, we're open to everyone who wants to come and walk with us. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily politicians. Anyone's welcome to come and walk with us. Sorry, John, I missed that.
There's a glitch. Who else would you like to see join you at one of the marches?
At the last leg?
Ooh.
Well, I would love to see Callie come and join us. She's always got the feel-good factor about her. But yeah, I mean, we're open. We're open to anyone that wants to come along.
What about the Proclaimers? Have they joined?
Proclaimers would be brilliant, yeah.
Yeah.
But we've got a few musician friends that might make an appearance as well.
Yeah. What sort of changes would you like to see in the immediate future when it comes to the independence movement? What's missing in a major sense right now?
I wouldn't say what's missing, but I would like to see a lot of the arguments stop, between the different parties and things. Because I think that could be detrimental to the independence movement, and to see people who've been friends for a long time arguing and falling out is not good. So I think we need to keep things positive and upbeat. We've all had a hard time with it throughout the pandemic, so let's try and move forward in a positive way.
Yeah.
Don't be fighting amongst ourselves.
Do you think many people outside the independence movement are aware of all this antipathy and, as you say, all these difficulties?
I think they are, yeah. And
really?
I think they're probably. I mean, they couldn't fail to see it because a lot of it has been online, So.
Yeah, but
I don't know what the answer is, but I would like to see people just calm down a wee bit.
I think most people would probably agree with you there, but I do wonder how much of an impact a lot of this stuff on Twitter and social media has outside the independence movement. I mean, I wonder how many people who are, say, a soft no or in the middle somewhere
might be put off by it. Yeah.
Do you think
that's my worry as well?
But do you think is there any proof that that's the case, or does it remain?
I mean, not personally, no, I haven't. But we have been quite isolated lately, haven't we? We've not been able to get out, talk to people. So,
well, maybe that's a good reason for wanting to see the results of this Michael Gove polling, which hopefully will emerge now that the court has ruled that it ought to be made available to people, and maybe that will show whether there's been any movement and whether people are terribly concerned or troubled by this outside of the independence movement. Because it is the case when you look at the history of independence movements, and we've dealt with this on the TNT show in the past. It is the case that independence movements, separatist movements, secessionist movements, whatever label you want to apply, there is a history of there being, fracturing, breaking into smaller groups. So it's not unusual. It's not peculiar to Scotland by any means. It's just that the longer it takes to get to the goal, the more likely it is that people will start to get fed up.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're people, because it's human nature. You know, if you think something is immediately around the corner, then you're prepared to say, okay, I'll swallow hard and put up with that. But if you think it's now 10 years away, then your thinking is completely different, I suspect.
Do you? I mean, I hope it's not 10 years away, but you know, I'd like to be proved wrong.
Yeah.
On that one.
What do you think? What do you think the Yes movement can do in addition to the marching, which people tonight clearly like a lot? What else might be done?
I think, like, talk to people. I mean, you know, now that things are returning to normal, and I mean, talk to them. Don't argue with people, and don't antagonize things when feelings are running high. As I say, I mean, maybe now's the time to start getting out and doing street stalls and things again, but during the walk as well. You know, even if you're going out for a pint or something like that, you know, strike up a conversation with someone if they're interested in things. You know, I think that's where the biggest difference is going to be made. It's not going to be what the politicians say and you know what have you. It's actually talk to your neighbours. You know, find out what their concerns are. You know, if it's something that you don't know about, say, well, will you give me a chance to try and answer your question, and you know, find out and go back and tell them. You know, it's gentle persuasion. I think is what's needed.
Yeah, you make a very interesting point there, because I spent some time in the States, and there was a politician over there who was actually the speaker, effectively speaker of the House of Representatives, and he was a tough old Democrat from Boston, a guy called Tip O'Neill, and he wrote a book saying all politics is local.
That's true. Yeah, it's, you know, I think that sometimes when people are a bit, they can be intimidated really by talking to like an MP or someone, but if it's just like a conversation like this, when if they're talking to an ordinary person, then they're more willing to listen. And
there's been a concern that waving flags is counterproductive, i.e. that some people see flags as being provocative. And, you know, maybe if there were one or two English flags, for example, on the march.
I've seen many English flags on the marches. I mean, I think that's quite often where people get confused. We welcome English people. We welcome people from all over the world to our marches and things. You know, so that would not be an issue at all. For people. In fact, on the last little leg of the walk, we're saying, wherever you're from, if you want to come along and join us, bring the flag from the country of your birth. You're more than welcome. We don't want political flags or things along, because we don't want arguing and things like that to happen. But yeah, you're more than welcome to bring along your saltires or your St. George's Cross, or things like that.
It's a reasonable point, because there's always a danger as soon as you pick up a flag and wave it, somebody somewhere is going to see that as being disturbing. You know, it depends on the setting to some degree.
Yeah, but what's wrong with wanting to fly the flag from the country of your birth? I mean, I can understand, you know, if to a no voter, like a yes flag's going to be antagonistic or that. But if it's a saltire or something like that, I don't get the argument behind that, because saltire is the flag from the country of my birth. It's the Scottish flag.
Yeah, I suspect, we've still got this echo on the line. I do apologise, everyone. We'll have it fixed for next week, I guarantee you, once we find out what's causing it. I suspect part of the concern is that as soon as anyone sees a flag, it creates a different reaction in different people, and also it's always good to see a salter. I always find it refreshing and interesting and rewarding, but I can imagine circumstances where other flags, other people might not see it in quite the same light and find it a little bit threatening. We've interviewed people on the programme, I can tell you in the past, who find the SNP incredibly threatening. Now that might sound very odd to you, because you think, well, what's threatening about the SNP? In fact, there's many people would suggest the SNP needs to be a little bit more threatening, perhaps. But
you can't please everybody all of the time, can you?
Well, this is it, but you do wonder if it seems to be it's one of these areas where you have to be careful a little bit, and I can understand why. I mean, somebody suggested that English Scots for Yes might be a group to invite to the march, to the marches
English
that you're
Scots for Yes regularly come along on the marches. As I say, we're open to anybody that wants to come along and join us.
Good. So you've got the
march. As long
march.
as they're for an independent Scotland, we don't mind.
Yeah. So let's imagine that right in front of you there's a button, and if you press it, Scotland will become independent as soon as you touch it, as soon as you press it. What sort of country do you have in mind that would be created when you press that button?
A fairer, more prosperous, a happier country where there's not as much arguing and fighting, and people look out for one another. Because I think that's what Scotland's about: looking after each other, helping others that need help, or asking for help, and actually being there to support people. Because I think the pandemic has there's going to be a lot of even more pressure on mental health services and things now as well. So we're going to have to help to support others through that, as we come out of it. People's anxiety from actually getting back out there and mixing in public and things again.
What tips would you give to people to preserve their mental health in these conditions? Is there any technique that you use? Is there anything that you work on that helps you?
Obviously, walking for me changed everything. The walk does. So if you're able, get out into the fresh air, go for a walk. Exercise if you can, and talk to people. Don't be isolated, because as a carer, I know how isolating things can be. So yeah, join a local support group, or there's various walking groups and things like that out there. So yeah, I would say, and a healthy diet as well, as much as possible.
Charles Smith is asking, have you a view on the media's reaction or lack of it to your activities?
No, I mean, not really. I mean, as Charles talking about the walk from last year, I mean,
I guess he's talking about the walks in general, not perhaps having attracted the attention of the media.
Well, I think that when it comes to the marches, we do get widespread media coverage and things. Maybe not in Britain, but I know that that there's like news crews and that cover the marches from France, Spain, places like that. Last year when we were on the walk, we had a French journalist followed us for a couple of days, who's also going to be joining us for the last leg as well. So I would disagree that we don't get the media coverage and things.
Okay, do me a favour. Ask him if he wants to come on the show.
I will. Julian.
Do
Julian,
that.
is his name? I'll ask him if he wants.
Yeah. See, how would you like? We can reverse the position. I can ask him questions rather than him asking you questions.
I'm sure Julian would be really up for that.
Well, give me his details or ask him to get in touch.
Yeah, I will do.
We've almost run out of time. In fact, we have run out of time, Fiona. A big thank you to you, and a big thank you to all of our audience tonight. I appreciate you sticking with us, even though we've had difficulties with the sound. We're not quite sure, as I said before, quite what happened there, but we'll get to the foot of it. I hope it hasn't subtracted too much from your enjoyment tonight. But a big thank you to you for joining us. As ever, we have a formidable list of guests lined up for future shows. This is the place to come if you want to know what's happening in the country, across all of the country. And we're back next week at the same time with another special guest. Julie Hepburn of the Social Justice and Fairness Commission joins us next Wednesday at 7 p.m. So do join us for that. If you're interested in social justice, fairness, and the work of the Commission, she'll be able to talk about that at considerable length and depth. And please also, as I always say, a reminder to look out this time for Elliot Bulmer's Constitution column in the Sunday National this weekend. And you'll find it in the 7-day supplement. And again, if you like it, tell the editor, Callum Baird. And very importantly, please support Indy Live and all of the Indy Live radio shows too. These are new voices for a new Scotland. No license, no problem. You can tune in anytime for all the news that you're not getting. And thank you again, and a very good night. Please join us next Wednesday. And remember, it's been a great day for British democracy. We found out today that the Queen lobbied to avoid green laws. So to all of you, stay safe and take care. Good night all.